Hi everyone, I'm Rosemary Miller here with marketing executive, entrepreneur, and the author of The Urgent Life, Bo St. John. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So just to start off, can you give us a brief overview of your background?
Oh gosh. Well, I have been a marketing executive in the C-suite for companies like Netflix, Uber, Apple, Endeavor, Pepsi. My career has spanned 25 years, and I have been at the crux of a lot of interesting pop culture moments. But most recently, in publishing my memoir, The Urgent Life, I wanted to be able to give people the understanding that even if you suffer through grief or tragedy or darkness, that you can still achieve, you can still succeed.
Okay. So what drew you to marketing and branding initially?
My love of pop culture, really. You know, I just enjoy everything about food and sports and fashion and music and everything pop culture. And I felt that the way that we connect as human beings is through things like that, and not necessarily just a shared lived experience, but shared interests.
So what challenges have you faced? I mean, you're a Black woman, I'm a Black woman, being in a white male-dominated space, and how did you overcome them?
Well, I mean, that's it. I don't think much needs to be said beyond that. You know, it's like, look, for me, I think one of the biggest challenges that I find that often replicates itself, regardless of industry, is that if you are othered, it feels like you need to fit into the stereotype of what has already been created in order to succeed, right? You can't be who you are and succeed in that space because no one has ever patterned anything against you or around you. And so how could you? And so the challenge for me was in actually showing up fully as myself, breaking down those stereotypes, which, by the way, is not a painless thing. I think sometimes we say it as if it was easy. You know, it's like, oh, just break down the stereotypes. Oh, crash through the glass ceiling. And my point is that, look, have you ever tried to crash through glass before? You know, you end up being cut and bleeding and concussions and hurt, you know? And so the idea of breaking through comes with a share of pain. And so for me, part of my journey and part of the challenge is that not just to break through these stereotypes that have been formed that weren't built for me, that I had to crash through and create in my own space, but also care for myself in a way to heal and continue to be successful.
So what exactly do you mean showing up fully as yourself? Give us some examples.
Well, showing up like what I'm wearing today.
And we love it.
It's not a gray suit, baby. You know what I mean? It's not. But that's what I mean. Not just like the physical, superficial way of being, but also in my experience, in my ideas. You know, I cannot pretend that I'm a white man. I don't know what that is like to be a white man. All I know is how to be a Black woman, a Black immigrant woman. And so I have used my experiences, my unique perspective in my work. And I think it's important for all of us to do that. You know, that in every scenario, you have to be able to show up giving the experience that you have light, so that the work that you do actually has your fingerprints on it.
So there are a lot of Black women and girls who I'm sure want to be like you. What advice would you give them? That you're important. You know, that the world may not communicate that to you. All of the examples that you see on success probably don't look like you, but you may be the one. You're probably the one we've been waiting for. So go into the world feeling like that. So can you give us any advice on experience you had negotiating your salary?
Oh gosh, well that's a big one. I mean, look, there's often conversation about this, right? There's all kind of strategies. People read all kind of books about it. What I have found is that, again, none of those books were written for people like us. You know, it's like, look, you can get into the negotiation and think that somebody looks at you as an equal, and more than likely they don't. And so for me, none of those rules have ever applied, which said, oh, the rules of negotiation are get their number and then negotiate from there. No, I have to start from the power position, and the power position is starting first. And so for me, that's the advice I give, is that it's worked. You know, and able to get like the money I feel like I deserve, I had to say the number I thought was most appropriate for me.
And that just worked.
Yeah. Yes.
You just set the number.
Set the number. And then guess what? When they said it wouldn't work, I knew that place wasn't for me. Because who wants to be at a place where you're undervalued or underpaid? I don't.
So what would you say to someone who feels stuck at that place?
You should leave.
You should leave.
Simple as that. Make the plan. Start now. You already know it. You know, it's like when by the time you get to that point where you feel like, this is not working, I don't know, girl, please, you know it. So start making the plan. Yes, and get out. Yes.
So we'll switch gears a little bit. So social media technology is evolving and changing.
Yes.
How are you keeping up with the trends?
Gosh, I don't know about the trends. I do what's comfortable for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way to do it. You know, it's like I want to know what's happening so that I am up to date, so that I understand, the changes that are happening. So educating myself on that, of course, is important, but I am using them in the way that works for me. So whether it's AI or it's, literally social media or some technology that helps my business, I want to be educated on it and then practice it the way that works for me instead of trying to follow what trend somebody says that I should use it for.
So give us your top 3 business tips on being a leader.
Okay, top 3 business tips. Well, first, to thy own self be true. You got to know yourself. That's the first thing about being a leader. I think sometimes, you say like, you've got to be able to know your people, got to be able to lead your people, and they give you all these tips and tricks on like how to appear to be. But that's not it. It's like, how do you know yourself? Do you know yourself? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are things you like? What are things you don't like? Knowing that is going to make you a much better leader because then you can fill in the holes with people who actually know the things you don't and being able to admit that. Number 2, listen more than you talk. So again, we've been conditioned to think that leaders must give the direction and say this way and marching orders and now and vision and strategy. Well, how are you going to know where you're going if you don't understand the landscape? And the landscape has been built by the people around you, especially if you're a new leader. Understanding and listening to what has already come before you, what people are working on, what their challenges are, what their struggles are, is going to make you a much more effective leader because then your strategy will be based on fact, based on what they understand and where they want to go. That's the second. The third thing, have a good time. The idea about leadership, which is not joyful, makes everybody miserable. Nobody wants to work for an unhappy person. So find the joy.
So what's the value of a college degree today?
I think it's still very important. I don't know that's necessarily about the study of the particular subject matter. Like I can't tell you that an English degree is more important than a biology degree or more important than a sociology degree. But I think the idea of learning the core habits of study, of summarizing information, of being able to articulate and communicate solid points quickly is what I learned in college that I find to be very, very helpful in the business world. And so a degree is important only because of the experience it gives you.
Well, Boz, you're a phenomenal, or should I say powerful woman.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate
next
it.
For you?
Thank you. Gosh, I don't know. We'll see what God has. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much.
Absolutely.